My name is Sophie Lane, and the last time I sat at a family dinner, I left with nothing, or so they thought. It was supposed to be a celebration. Dad's promotion. My sister's engagement. I brought a bottle of red wine, too expensive for my paycheck, and that quiet little hope that maybe this time maybe I'd be noticed, heard, seen. The house smelled like rosemary chicken and old money. Everything in its place. Silverware that never gets used unless there's something to prove. And there always is. I smiled. I laughed. I asked about venues, toasted to success. I did everything right. Then my mother cleared her throat like she was about to read scripture. Dad folded his napkin with that same precision he used when correcting my life choices, and they said it. We've decided to remove you from the will, Sophie. It's what's best for the family. Just like that.
Like?
They were changing dinner plans. No explanation, no warning. Just the sound of a knife carving me out of the family tree. My sister didn't flinch. Just sipped her champagne, eyes gleaming. I looked around that table and saw strangers who shared my blood. Not one word in my defense, not one glance of hesitation. So I stood up. I left. No storming out, no final words. Just the dull thud of my heels on marble. But what they didn't know, what they never cared to ask, was that the story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. My grandmother, Eleanor Lane, wasn't soft. She wore pearls like armor and moved through life like she built the ground herself. And in a way, she did. Every corner of the family business had her fingerprints on it. Tough, calloused, deliberate. They liked to pretend she was old-fashioned, but she was just ahead of her time, too sharp for them, too watchful. She saw things others ignored. And she saw me. When I was 10, I told her I didn't feel like I belonged in this family. She poured me lemonade, squeezed my hand, and said, "That's because you don't. Not yet. But one day they'll answer to you, Sophie. Keep your chin up and your heart clean." I thought she was being kind. Turns out she was planting a seed. She taught me how to read contracts before bedtime stories. How to listen for the truth behind pretty words. How to stay steady when men raise their voices to make themselves seem taller. She told me I had a spine made of iron, even when I didn't believe it. Before she died, we had tea in her garden. She was quiet that day, watching the birds, tracing the rim of her teacup like she was deciding something. And then she said, "I've made arrangements, just in case the family forgets who they really are." I didn't ask what she meant. I wish I had. But grief was already blooming behind my ribs. Now I understand. She didn't leave me with nothing. She left me with everything. And a promise to keep. I didn't open the envelope right away. It sat in my glove compartment for 3 weeks. Sealed. With my grandmother's initials in waxy L, like a signature carved into time. Her lawyer had handed it to me the day after her funeral. No small talk. No condolences. Just, "She wanted you to have this privately." I stared at it in packing lots. Touched it like it might still be warm from her hands. But I couldn't open it. Not until the pain softened into something I could breathe through. When I finally tore it open, I didn't cry. I froze. Inside was a revised copy of the trust. Signed, notarized, dated 2 months. Before she died, she had transferred controlling interest of Lane and Shua to me, not to my father. Not to my perfect sister. To me. And just like that, the world tilted. There was also a letter. Written in her exact sharp handwriting. "They will underestimate you. Let them. They will exclude you. Endure it, they will regret it. Make sure of that." I read it 3 times before I realized I was shaking. Not from fear, from recognition. This wasn't just inheritance. This was instruction. She knew what they'd do. She knew the moment she was gone, they'd cut me loose like a loose thread. But she also knew they wouldn't think to check the back door she left unlocked. And I wasn't about to knock. I was going to walk straight through and take what was already mine. I went back to the house I grew up in. Not for them. For her, the place looked the same, immaculate, cold, curated like a museum no one actually lived in. Photos lined the hallway walls. My father shaking hands with mayors, my sister in every prom dress, my mother smiling like a woman with nothing to hide. And then, tucked into the corner, one single picture of me, Fourth grade spelling bee. Crooked. Bangs. Forgotten. I climbed the stairs to my grandmother's old room. The door was still closed. I opened it slowly, like maybe she'd still be sitting in her armchair, sipping her tea, eyes twinkling with secrets. But it was just dust now. Memories. And silence. Her scent still clung to the air, lavender and ink and something like dignity. I moved through the room, touching things gently. Her pen, her notebook, her glasses folded neatly beside the bed. In the bottom drawer of her vanity. I found it. A leather-bound ledger. Handwritten notes in margins. Company numbers, meetings, mistakes, names underlined in red ink. And my name circled. Next to it she'd written, the only one who listens. I sat on the floor and wept. Not because I missed her. I'd been missing her since the day she got sick. But because this quiet, deliberate act was love. The kind I never got from the one still breathing. They made me feel small, invisible, forgettable, but she knew. She saw me. And now I saw it too. They built a hollow empire, but she left the heart of it in my hands. I didn't march in like a queen. I didn't shout or shake the walls. That's not how you reclaim a legacy. You do it quiet, careful, like sewing. A ripped seam in the dark. I called my grandmother's old attorney, Mr. Holloway. He remembered me right away. Sophie Lane, he said, the smart one. I almost cried at that. Instead, I asked him to help me take control of what was already mine. He agreed. No hesitation. We started slow. Auditing the books, reviewing board appointments, uncovering the rot they buried under polished quarterly reports. My father had been moving funds. Tiny leaks, hidden in bloated budgets. My sister had a company card and a shopping addiction. Private jets for meetings in Monaco. Champagne in every spreadsheet. They didn't expect to be watched. They thought I'd disappeared, curled up somewhere, licking my wounds. What I was really doing. Learning every inch of the empire they thought they'd inherited. Finding allies inside the company, quiet ones, loyal to Eleanor, who remembered. The woman who built it brick by brick. One of them looked me in the eye and said, "We've been waiting for someone who gives a damn." And that cracked something open in me. Something fierce. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about rebuilding something worth saving. Something she'd be proud of. I didn't need to scream to be heard. I just needed the right moment. And the right truth. And when the time came, I'd speak it loud enough to shake every marble wall they tried to bury me behind. They moved on like I was never there. Photos of my sister and her fiancé flooded social media, lavish dinners. Designer gowns. Heirs to the Lane legacy. Printed in gold foil on wedding invitations. My father gave interviews, dropping phrases like next generation leadership and family tradition. Not once did my name come up. It was like being erased in real time. And I watched it all from a small rented apartment with a leaky faucet and peeling walls. Alone. But I wasn't broken. I was building. I stayed quiet. Let them have their applause, their spotlights, their speeches. Let them believe they'd won. Because behind the scenes, my team was tightening the noose. Every form filed. Every transfer locked. The company was no longer theirs. They just hadn't read the fine print yet. I'd memorized every flaw in the foundation, every dollar funneled. Every mistake they'd smoothed over with charm and cash. They thought they were untouchable, but untouchable people don't hide things in offshore accounts. Untouchable people don't lie to shareholders. And soon, none of their charm would matter. Not when the truth was staring them down across a courtroom. Sometimes I wondered if they ever thought of me. If my mother's hand trembled when she crossed my name out of the will. If my father felt even a flicker of guilt. Probably not. Guilt isn't something you feel when you think you're the hero. But I wasn't looking for apologies anymore. I wasn't the forgotten daughter in the corner. I was the storm gathering. Just beyond their glass walls. The courtroom was colder then. I expected. Sterile. Still. The kind of place where families go to finish breaking apart. They walked in like royalty. My father in his tailored navy suit. My mother in pearls and ice. My sister wore white, of course she did, and clung to her fiancé like she was starring in some courtroom drama. They didn't see me at first. I was already seated with Mr. Holloway, calm as breath. When they noticed, My mother blinked. My father narrowed his eyes like I was a fly in the room. My sister smiled. Not kindly, the judge called the session to order. Routine, formal. Until I stood and placed the documents on the bench. Real ones. Signed, sealed, and binding. My grandmother's wishes in ink that hadn't faded. The room shifted. I watched it happen. My father's jaw clenched. My sister whispered something with too much teeth. My mother reached for her pearls like they might save her. The judge read through everything slowly, carefully. Then he looked up and said, "Based on these legal documents, Miss Sophie Lane holds controlling interest in Lane & Co., effective immediately." Silence. Heavy final. My father stood like he might protest. The judge didn't flinch. "You'll now report to Ms. Lane," he said. And that was the moment. I didn't smile. Didn't gloat. Didn't say "I told you so." I looked at my father and said quietly, "Dinner's over." And just like that, the power shifted. I had walked in their shadow my whole life. Now they stood in mine. They didn't take it well. Of course they didn't. My father refused to look me in the eye the first time I walked into the boardroom. My sister left before the meeting even began. A sudden migraine, her assistant claimed. My mother sent flowers. No note. White lily, funeral flowers. How fitting. The board was a battlefield in suits and smiles. Some welcomed me, quiet nods. Eyes that remembered Eleanor. Others challenged everything. My experience, my presence. My name, but I had the paperwork, the votes. The legal weight of a legacy that didn't belong to them anymore. They talked over me. I listened. They questioned my plans. I showed them the numbers, clean books, ethical leadership, long-term vision. Things my father abandoned for fast wins and glossy press. There were whispers. Sabotage in the small things, canceled meetings, missing reports. But I didn't flinch, because this wasn't just revenge anymore. It was restoration. I walked through the halls she once built, touched desks she once stood beside, and reminded myself what mattered, not proving them wrong. Proving her right. The hardest part wasn't the power. It was the grief. Grief that she wasn't here to see me take the seat she saved. Grief that even now I still wanted my father to say, "I'm proud of you." But he never did. He just handed over his key card like it weighed 1,000 bricks, and I took it. Not for him, for her. For me, for every version of myself they tried to silence. Running the company wasn't the victory. Keeping its soul intact, that was the war. Every day brought a new mess they left behind. Lawsuits buried in drawers. Deals made with men who smiled too wide and called me sweetheart in emails. A culture of fear wrapped in designer suits, but I didn't burn it all down. I rebuilt it. I called back employees who were pushed out. I replaced board members who had forgotten what integrity looked like. I scrapped the empty luxury campaigns and refocused on what mattered. Real work. Real people. Real stories. It wasn't glamorous. It was gritty. Late nights, tears, mistakes, but I felt her with me every time I sat at her old desk. Every time. I caught my reflection in the glass and saw not the girl they abandoned, but the woman she raised in secret. I still had scars. Moments I wanted to scream. Mornings I stared at the ceiling and asked, "Why me?" But then I remember, because I listened. Because I stayed. Because I gave a damn when no one else did. They made me feel like a ghost in my own family. Now I was the flame they couldn't ignore. And the legacy. It didn't live in marble walls or press releases. It lived in the people we hired back. In the single moms who got maternity leave. In the interns who no longer had to smile through harassment. In the way we did better even when no one was watching. That was the kind of legacy Eleanor Lane believed in. Not power for power's sake, but fire with purpose. Dear Mom, Dad, and Claire, you won't read this. I won't send it, but I need to write it anyway. You tried to cut me out like I was some extra part unnecessary, inconvenient. And for a long time, I believed you. I believed that I was hard to love, easy to forget, the girl who never quite fit the Lane mold. But here's the truth I've had to learn the hard way. I was never the problem. You just never tried to understand the shape of me. I came to that dinner hoping for something soft. A moment. A glance.
A single "we're proud of you."
Instead, you handed me silence wrapped in betrayal, and still I didn't fight back. Not right away, because the wound wasn't new. It was just deeper this time, but here's what you didn't count on. She chose me, not out of pity. Not out of rebellion. Out of clarity, she saw who you were. And she saw who I could become, so I became her quiet revenge. Her final truth: you can keep your dinners and champagne toasts. Keep your curated family portraits and thin smiles. I have something you'll never touch, peace, the kind that comes from knowing. I never had to become like you to win. I built something out of the ashes you left me in. And I did it without screaming, without begging, without becoming bitter. I did it the Eleanor way. So no, I won't send this. You wouldn't understand it anyway, but I will fold it gently, place it in her old ledger, and let it rest where it belongs in the past. Sophie.